Here we go. Last lesson of credit recovery world history, talking about lesson 7 and globalization. So, if you're not familiar with this term, you will be by the end of this lesson. I'm going to define it here in a little bit, and then I'm going to give you two examples of resources you can look at with Crash Course to kind of get the idea of it. I'm going to give you some different events that help with globalization. And this is something that is ongoing history, meaning this is where we live and breathe in the year 2022 of me making this video. So as always, this one is going to be hardcore in effects. So I'm going to give you a lot of causes, and I'm going to want you to determine the effects. Or you can flip it around, I guess, that because of all these things I'm going to talk about, globalization happens. Either way, you're all good in my hood. But why does it matter to me is because this is where you are going to be fully embracing living in the 21st century. So going into the globalization, here is the definition. Is the word used to describe the growing interdependence of the world's economies, cultures, and populations brought about by cross-border trade in goods and services, technology, and flows of investment, people, and information. Right now, you're thinking, what? But that's why I included this picture. Notice how it looks like a spider web, and notice how all these different dots from around the world are connecting. And that's what this is saying, that we cannot just stand alone and operate as our own country anymore, or neither can any other country for that matter. Let's go to the extreme opposite of globalization. North Korea. They cannot sustain by themselves on their own land. So they have to buy a lot of stuff on the black market because no countries will trade with them because of his humanitarian things. But why this matters is because this is going to be a thing that's going to happen from now on in the world. And if you remember, we've talked about different things in this world history that are going to be promoting globalization. And there's actually three of them. And the first one is when Christopher Columbus discovered, air quote, the New World. This is Globalization 1.0, the original, if you will. He basically proved that there was another half of the world out there. So that's why it's Globalization 1.0. We knew that there is new resources there that we can now communicate with, go and take with. There's new people over there we can communicate with, and basically opens the door to the new world and settling. Then when you go into Globalization 2.0, this is going to be the Industrial Revolution. So rough years 1600 to 1800. This is where you're going to notice that business is going to be now being done across the ocean, if you will. You're going to notice that they're going to trade a whole lot during this time. Where before it was kind of a one-way street with Christopher Columbus and that triangle trade, now you're going to notice that all parts of the world are going to be doing business with one another in the correct way. So this is a big deal. So why this matters to us is that this is Globalization Event 2.0, and then you are currently living in Globalization 3.0, the digital revolution. And this is basically going to be revolving around the speed of which information can travel around the world. So why this is all such a big deal is that when things happen fast, they happen efficient, and it's going to get basically work with the world's economies and people. So here is where you're going to notice this term of the flat world is going to be brought about. Now, I'm not saying that somebody's going to make the world flat like a pancake. I'm saying flat because it is a metaphor for the absolute fastest one person or one thing can be, is when it operates on a flat hill. So when you go uphill, it's slow, it's hard going, and it's difficult. But when you go downhill, sometimes you can be out of control and it just goes way too fast and then bad things happen. So that's why the term flat was basically used. Now, this isn't a term that I came up with. This is a term that a famous historian named Thomas Friedman came up with. And he identifies 10 world flattening events. So we've actually talked about a couple of them. So I'm going to go over them pretty quickly. But number one was the Berlin Wall. And if you remember when that went down, that's when the Cold War basically ended, or communism basically ended for the Soviet Union. They were operating as their own country and basically keeping to themselves and not sharing a whole lot of information. And at the same token, they weren't given a whole lot of information from the outside world because of what communism did. So when the Berlin Wall goes down, communism ends, that's when you're going to notice that the true world is connected once again. And this is in 1989. So keep that in mind. So this is prior knowledge here, but true or false? The fall of communism allowed capitalism to flourish in the former Soviet Union. So keep in mind, when communism ended, what was the next system that went in? So going into events 2 through 4, the second one is the World Wide Web / the internet. I mean, this goes without saying, but when the internet is developed, this is going to be a game changer, which was once a government only thing and basically an interconnection of sharing information. It's going to expand out to the world. And with this internet, now everybody is connected to a mass lump of information. And I'm going to be talking about that more as we progress here. But number 3, workflow software. And when you think about this, this is 2022 and basically 2020, if you remember the coronavirus, is going to where we're going to start kicking this off. It is basically technology that's going to be used to build collaboration amongst other people to share designs, ideas, and whichever. So think of FaceTime. Okay. You can now basically work with somebody that's not in the same room, same building, same state, same country, now over FaceTime if you really absolutely wanted to, and all the other programs that are kind of like that. Number 4 is uploading. When you have this information, you get to now share it. So when you take your information and upload it back to number 2, the internet, this is called collective knowledge. This is where you're going to make somebody else's life easier based on what you just learned. So this knowledge is being passed on to other people and they get to build off of it. So this is all possible, again, because of the internet. So some examples of this would be like social media, how you upload different things there, different apps that make your life easier, or different Google extensions that make your life easier. So again, this is kind of a big deal because I like living an easy life, and I'd be willing to bet you do too. And a lot of these are free to the people that want them. So question number 2, true or false? Zoom would be an example of workflow software, the second one that I talked about on the last slide. So going into events 5, 6, and 7, number 5 is outsourcing. So this is an example of things that happen inside of a country. So let's use the United States, for example. And it's when a business does not do a certain job or function within their own business and hire somebody else to do it. So for example, Davenport buses. They do not, the school district of Davenport does not own buses. They hire out to a bus company to do that. Now, with that, you save money by not having to buy and upkeep buses, but you do have the cost of hiring them out. So that's an example. Number 6, offshoring. This is when a company moves from one country to a next for various reasons, okay? But the most common reason is labor cost. Think of Nike, okay? Started in Seattle, Washington. If they were to open up the factories inside of the United States, they would have to pay people an ungodly amount of money in order to make all the different shoes that they do. So what they did do is open up different factories in India and China, where the people there don't require a whole lot of money, where they don't ask for a whole lot of more money. And why this is a big deal to Nike is because when you pay workers less, you make more profit. So this is a human ethical dilemma that's still kind of ongoing, and I'm not even going to touch that, but I'm going to let you decide what you want there. And then number 7 is supply chain. When you can move around the different materials that people need for their businesses, their daily life, or whichever, this is going to be a big deal. Okay. So the simple example here is Amazon. If you really wanted to, you go to Amazon Prime right now, type in that you need a box of G2 pens, and chances are you could probably go get them or they'll be delivered to you within 24 hours. So the speed of which that happens is ongoing. It's only getting faster. So question, true or false? John Deere making tractors in Moline, Illinois is an example of outsourcing. And then going into 8, 9, and 10, insourcing. So if outsourcing is basically taking things Outside of your business, insourcing is the exact opposite, where people are going to do things within their own business to save on that supply chain, if you will. So, big example of this, you may not even heard about this company, but Toshiba. They make pretty decent computers. So they were basically spending a whole lot of money sending things via UPS to be repaired, in this case, laptop computers. Well, UPS, they kind of did them a solid. They said, how about we just train people to fix computers inside of UPS to save that expense? So that's an example of that. Number 9, informing. This provides universal access of knowledge to anybody that really wants it. In today's age with the internet connection, if you really want to read the scrolls of Alexandria, or if you want to read some book that's only in England, and you can hop on the internet and chances are somebody probably scanned it in if they really wanted to. So ebooks, websites, the sharing of information, again, kind of kicking back to another one, but a little bit different. When people know more, they can do better things, I guess you would say, hopefully, in theory. And then last one, 10, very recently, this is the wireless connectivity. So simply put, the Wi-Fi, the 5G, whatever you want to call it, you basically no longer needed to have an actual cord to your computer to connect to the internet. So this is going to ramp up the other 9 that we just got done talking about. Basically spreading information as fast as humanly possible. So, true or false? An example of informing would be sharing the cure of cancer amongst doctors once it is found. And then here's where I'm going to kick you over to 2 and the last crash courses you need to watch for for world history in this credit recovery. So there's actually 2 of them, Globalization 1 and Globalization 2. So the reason being is that this is a big topic right here. So Globalization 1, Globalization 2, as you can see, 6 points, 4 points, although it's super interesting. Okay, it may not be like the most exciting of crash courses in terms of what he talks about, but it puts it in very good perspective of what our world is coming to. So thank you very much for clicking along with me on the credit recovery of world history. Hopefully this helped, and